The crystalline spires of Earth's Global Xenobiology Research Center pierced the morning sky like elegant daggers of light. Dr. Sarah Chen stood at the observation deck, watching the approaching Zenithian vessel descend through the atmosphere. Its metallic surface rippled with an ever-changing pattern of iridescent colors, a display of technological superiority typical of their species. "They're early," muttered Dr. James Rodriguez, her deputy director, checking his datapad. "Zenithians always have to make an entrance." Sarah smiled slightly but kept her eyes on the approaching ship. After 15 years of studying how Earth's wildlife affected various alien species, she learned to read the subtle signs of trouble. The Zenithians' reputation preceded them. A species that had evolved on a high-gravity world with triple-layered metallic skin and regenerative abilities that made them nearly indestructible. They were also, according to every diplomatic report she'd read, insufferably arrogant. The ship landed with barely a whisper, its dynamic compensation fields preventing even a breath of displaced air. The main hatch cycled open, revealing a delegation of 5 Zenithians. Their leader, standing nearly 3 meters tall, ducked to exit the ship. His metallic skin caught the morning light and scattered it in rainbow patterns across the landing pad. "Dr. Chen." The leader's voice resonated with harmonics that made the observation windows vibrate slightly. "I am Axon, senior researcher of the Zenithian Science Academy and battle master of the Third Fleet." He paused, his faceted eyes scanning the facility. "Your facility seems adequate." Sarah stepped forward, maintaining the professional smile she perfected over years of diplomatic interactions. "Battle Master Axon, welcome to Earth. We're honored to host the Zenithian Academy's first official research visit." Axon's assistants were already deploying various scanning devices, their movements precise and efficient. "We've reviewed your preliminary data on Earth's biological defense mechanisms," Axon said, his tone carrying a note of dismissal. "While interesting from an academic perspective, I must question some of your safety protocols. They seem excessive for creatures of such minimal size." Sarah exchanged a quick glance with James. They'd both heard this before. Every new species thought they were special, thought their physical advantages would protect them. The morgue 2 levels below held evidence to the contrary. "Perhaps a tour would help explain our procedures," Sarah offered, gesturing toward the main entrance. "We can start with the basic containment areas and work our way up to the more specialized facilities." Axon's assistants fell into formation behind him as they entered the building. The security scanners hummed, analyzing their unique biological signatures and adding them to the facility's monitoring system. Sarah noticed how Axon barely contained a scoff at the decontamination procedures. "On our world," Axon commented as they walked through the sterilization field, "we have creatures that could swallow your largest terrestrial predators whole. Yet we contain them with simple force fields." Sarah led them to the first demonstration room, where various displays showed Earth's most dangerous small creatures. "Size isn't everything, Battlemaster. Take this specimen, for instance." She brought up a hologram of a tiny blue-ringed octopus, less than 20 centimeters long, but its venom can kill 50 beings your size before you could even activate those force fields. One of Axon's assistants, smaller and more delicately built than the others, leaned forward with interest. "Fascinating. The chemical composition must be extraordinary." "Silence. Researcher Vex," Axon commanded. "We're not here to admire primitive chemical weapons." He turned to Sarah, his metallic skin shifting to a slightly darker shade. "Dr. Chen, while we appreciate your facility's commitment to safety, you must understand that Zenithian physiology is unlike anything you've encountered. Our bodies can neutralize any known toxin, and our skin can resist molecular disassembly." Sarah walked to another display, bringing up footage from previous research incidents. 3 years ago, a Cranaxian ambassador made similar claims. Their species can survive in the vacuum of space and withstand the pressure at the bottom of gas giant planets. She paused the footage. "Would you like to see what happened when they ignored our warnings about a common box jellyfish?" Before Axon could respond, alarms blared through the facility. Red warning lights pulsed along the corridors, and security doors began sliding into place. Containment breach in Lab 7, the facility's AI announced calmly. Category Red Specimen. All personnel initiate emergency protocols. Sarah was already moving, her fingers flying over her datapad. Battlemaster, please remain here with your team. Our containment specialists will handle this. Axon's metallic skin rippled with what might have been amusement. Surely you don't expect us to cower in a room while your human teams handle a simple escaped specimen. This could be an excellent opportunity to demonstrate Zenithian crisis management techniques. That wasn't a request, Battlemaster. Sarah's voice carried an edge of steel that made even Axon pause. This is my facility, and until you've completed full safety certification, you will follow our protocols. Is that clear? For a moment, tension crackled between them like static electricity. Then Axon inclined his head slightly. Not quite a bow, but close enough to diplomatic courtesy. As you wish, Dr. Chen. We will observe, for now. As Sarah hurried toward the containment breach, she couldn't shake the feeling that Axon's compliance was temporary at best. She'd seen that look before, that mixture of superiority and curiosity. It usually preceded someone making a very serious mistake. Behind her, through the reinforced observation windows, she could feel Axon's faceted eyes following her movement, calculating, measuring. She just hoped she could convince him of the truth before his pride got someone killed. On Earth, respect for nature's dangers wasn't weakness, it was the most basic form of intelligence. The containment breach turned out to be minor. A damaged seal on a cone snail habitat that the facility's automated systems had detected before any actual escape occurred. Still, Sarah had insisted on running full containment protocols, much to Axon's visible disdain. Now, 3 days into the Zenithians' visit, she could sense their growing restlessness. Today's schedule includes observation of our specimen collection procedures, Sarah announced to the assembled Zenithian team in the briefing room. The morning light filtering through the smart glass windows cast shifting patterns across their metallic skin. More observation. Axon rumbled, his tone carrying that now familiar mix of politeness and condescension. Dr. Chen, while we appreciate your facility's thoroughness, my team is trained for active field research. Surely we could participate more directly. Sarah pulled up a holographic display showing their target specimen, a particularly aggressive species of funnel-web spider. Battlemaster, I understand your eagerness, but there's a reason we start with observation. Even our most experienced handlers treat every collection as potentially lethal. The smallest Zenithian, Vex, stepped forward. Dr. Chen, our preliminary scans show that this specimen's venom proteins are remarkably complex. Perhaps if we... Researcher Vex. Axon cut in sharply. Control your enthusiasm. We are here to evaluate Earth's wildlife for potential military applications, not to admire their primitive chemical weapons. Sarah noticed how Vex's metallic skin dimmed slightly at the rebuke, but she kept her expression neutral. If you'll follow me to the collection chamber, we can begin. The collection chamber was a marvel of containment technology, with multiple redundant barriers and atmospheric controls. Through the observation window, they watched as 2 human handlers in specialized protective suits approached the spider's location with practiced caution. Notice how they move, Sarah pointed out. Every step is calculated. They're not just avoiding the spider, they're watching for signs of others nearby. Axon's faceted eyes narrowed. Your handlers move like prey animals. On our world, we face our dangers directly. That's one approach, Sarah agreed mildly. We prefer to come home alive. The handlers had located the spider now, its dark form visible on their thermal imaging display. One handler carefully maneuvered a specialized collection container, while the other maintained watch with a neural disruptor, non-lethal, but capable of temporarily immobilizing most Earth arthropods. Suddenly, the spider moved. Not away from the handlers, but toward them, its speed startling even to Sarah. The handlers reacted instantly, their movements choreographed by countless drills. The neural disruptor fired, but the spider had already changed direction, leaping with unexpected precision. Remarkable agility, Vex murmured, earning another sharp look from Axon. The spider's leap carried it directly onto one handler's suit, where it immediately tried to bite through the protective material. The handler remained perfectly still while their partner carefully approached with the collection container. "Why doesn't he simply crush it?" Axon demanded. "Even in those restrictive suits, they must have enough strength." "Because," Sarah explained, "if that suit is compromised, even slightly, the handler could be dead within hours. Sometimes strength means knowing when not to use it." They watched as the handlers successfully captured the spider, their movements never rushing despite the obvious danger. As the specimen was secured in its new containment unit, Sarah noticed Vex taking detailed notes on a holographic pad, an impressive display of unnecessary caution. Axon declared, but Sarah caught something new in his tone, the first hint of uncertainty. "Though I suppose for humans, such measures are prudent." Sarah was about to respond when her datapad chimed with an urgent alert. Her eyes widened slightly as she read the message. "If you'll excuse me, there's a situation requiring my attention. Please remain here with Dr. Rodriguez." "Another containment breach?" Axon asked, his metallic skin rippling with what might have been amusement. "No," Sarah replied carefully. "One of our deep-sea specimen collection teams just reported an unusual discovery, something we've never encountered before." Now she had their full attention. Even Axon couldn't quite hide his interest. "What kind of discovery?" "They're calling it a new species of box jellyfish, but its properties are unexpected." Sarah checked another incoming message. "The preliminary data suggests its venom might be able to affect even synthetic nervous systems." For the first time since their arrival, she saw genuine surprise flash across Axon's features. The Zenithians' neural networks were partially synthetic, one of their many evolutionary advantages. "Impossible," Axon stated, but his voice carried a note of uncertainty. "No natural compound could affect our neural pathways." "Would you care to observe the preliminary analysis?" Sarah offered, knowing she had finally found something that cracked their species' legendary confidence. "Though, of course, you'll need to follow all safety protocols." Axon stood silent for a moment, his faceted eyes reflecting the red warning lights that had begun flashing along the corridors. Finally, he inclined his head. "Lead the way, Dr. Chen. Perhaps Earth's creatures deserve closer study than we initially believed." As they headed toward the marine laboratory, Sarah noticed Vex falling into step beside her, their metallic skin shimmering with barely contained excitement. "Dr. Chen," they whispered, careful to stay out of Axon's hearing, "is it true that you have specimens of cone snails that can pierce Chronaxian battle armor?" Sarah smiled slightly. "That's classified information, Researcher Vex. But if you're interested in chemical defense mechanisms, you might want to attend tomorrow's demonstration of our inland Typhon venom synthesis program." Behind them, Axon walked in uncharacteristic silence, his confident stride somewhat diminished. Sarah knew that look. She'd seen it on countless other visitors to Earth. It was the first crack in the armor of superiority, the first realization that perhaps, just perhaps, they had underestimated this small blue world and its deceptively deadly inhabitants. The facility's night cycle brought little respite to its inhabitants. Automated systems hummed continuously, maintaining the precise conditions needed for each specimen. In the dim light of emergency strips, Axon moved silently through the corridors, his metallic skin adjusted to absorb rather than reflect light. The past week had shaken him more than he cared to admit. Each day brought new demonstrations of Earth's lethal diversity. Creatures that could kill with a touch, others that could dissolve protective suits in seconds, toxins that could bypass any known defense. Worse, he had seen the looks his team gave him now, especially Vex, whose fascination with Earth's primitive life forms grew more obvious by the day. He paused at a security checkpoint, interfacing his personal computer with the facility's systems. The human security was impressive, but Zenithian technology had its advantages. Within moments, he had the access codes he needed. "Time to end this charade," he muttered, entering the first set of codes. The security door slid open silently. The specimen vault beyond held some of Earth's deadliest creatures. Axon moved purposefully toward a specific containment unit, one housing the blue-ringed octopus. He had chosen his target carefully after studying the facility's records. The creature's venom was supposedly strong enough to kill multiple Chronaxians, but surely a Zenithian's superior physiology would prove different. He reached the containment unit, his fingers moving swiftly over the control panel. Just as the final lock disengaged, a quiet voice spoke from the shadows. "I was wondering how long it would take you to try this." Axon spun to find Dr. Chen stepping into view, her expression grave. Behind her, Vex emerged from another shadow, their metallic skin dulled with what might have been shame. "You had me followed," Axon demanded, his pride stinging at the realization. "No," Sarah replied calmly. "I had you predicted. Every species that comes here goes through the same stages: denial, curiosity, and then either acceptance or—" She gestured at the containment unit. "This. You understand nothing." Axon's voice resonated with barely contained anger. "My species has conquered every challenge we faced. We've survived environments that would destroy your frail form in seconds. I refuse to believe that these tiny creatures—" "Battlemaster," Vex interrupted, their voice trembling but determined. "The humans aren't exaggerating. I've analyzed their data myself. These creatures—" "Silence." Axon's command echoed through the vault. "You've been contaminated by their weakness, their excessive caution." He turned back to the containment unit. "I will prove once and for all." The rest of his sentence was cut off by the sound of shattering glass. In his anger, he had struck the containment unit too hard. And now alarms blared through the facility. Through the broken panel, a small form moved with liquid grace. "Don't move." Sarah's voice carried an edge of steel. "That's not a request, Battlemaster. Stay absolutely still." But Axon's pride had carried him too far. "Enough. I am a Battlemaster of the Third Fleet. I will not be commanded by—" He reached for the creature, his metallic skin gleaming under the emergency lights. The blue-ringed octopus moved faster than even Zenithian reflexes could track. Its rings flashed brilliant blue, a warning that came too late. Axon felt a sharp sting, barely more than a pinprick through his supposedly impenetrable skin. "Impossible," he whispered, staring at the tiny puncture mark. Already he could feel something wrong, a creeping numbness that defied his body's legendary healing abilities. Sarah was already moving, hitting emergency protocols on her datapad, while speaking rapid commands to the facility's eye. "Medical team to Vault 7, Code Black. Subject exposed to blue-ringed octopus venom. Prepare the experimental antidote protocol." Axon tried to take a step, and found his legs wouldn't respond. His visual processors began to glitch, creating strange patterns in his field of view. He felt himself falling, his mighty frame crashing to the floor with a sound that seemed very far away. The last thing he saw before darkness took him was Vex's face, their features twisted with concern, and Dr. Chen kneeling beside him, her expression not triumphant or mocking, but filled with a deep, almost painful understanding. "Stay with us, Battlemaster." Her voice seemed to come from a great distance. "You're about to learn the hardest lesson Earth has to teach. Sometimes the greatest strength lies in admitting our vulnerabilities." As consciousness faded, Axon realized with startling clarity that in all his centuries of combat and conquest, he had never felt as helpless as he did now, laid low by a creature he could have crushed with one hand. His last thought before the darkness took him completely was a question he had never considered before. What else had his pride blinded him to? The facility's emergency response teams were already flooding the vault, their movements precise and practiced, while the tiny architect of Axon's downfall was safely contained once more. In the chaos, no one noticed Vex carefully collecting readings from their fallen leader, data that would eventually reshape their species' understanding of strength, pride, and the true meaning of survival. Consciousness returned to Axon in waves, each one bringing with it new sensations he had never experienced before. Pain, real, deep pain, was the first. His species' regenerative abilities had always made such discomfort fleeting, but now it lingered, a constant reminder of his vulnerability. The medical bay's soft blue lighting was calibrated specifically for Zenithian physiology, but even that felt harsh to his sensitive optical processors. He tried to move and found that his once mighty frame responded sluggishly, if at all. "The paralysis will fade gradually," Dr. Chen's voice came from nearby. She stepped into his field of view, holding a datapad displaying his vital signs. "You're lucky. If Vex hadn't insisted on developing a specialized antidote protocol during their research here, you might not have survived." Axon tried to speak, but his vocal synthesizers produced only static at first. After several attempts, he managed to form words. "How long?" "3 days," Sarah replied, adjusting something on his medical support system. "The venom affected your synthetic neural pathways in ways we hadn't previously documented. Vex has been working around the clock, analyzing the interaction. Their findings might revolutionize our understanding of biosynthetic interfaces." Shane washed over Axon as he remembered his actions, his arrogance. "The others?" "Your team has been split between helping with your recovery and continuing their research." She paused, studying his face. "They're learning a lot about Earth's wildlife. Real learning this time, not just looking for military applications." Through the medical bay's observation window, Axon could see Vex in an adjacent laboratory, working intently with human researchers. Their metallic skin glowed with excitement as they examined holographic displays of molecular structures. "I was wrong." Axon's voice came out as barely more than a whisper, the admission costing him more than any battle ever had. Sarah pulled up a chair beside his bed, her expression thoughtful. "You know what fascinates me about Earth's most dangerous creatures? They rarely attack out of aggression. The blue-ringed octopus that stung you. It was defending itself. All that power, and it only uses it when necessary." She brought up a holographic display showing the octopus in its natural habitat. "These creatures don't dominate their environment through force. They survive through adaptation, through developing precisely what they need. No more, no less." "Like humans," Axon observed, the realization striking him with unexpected force. Sarah nodded. "We're not the strongest species on our own planet, not by far. We survived and thrived because we learned to understand and respect the dangers around us. True strength isn't about being invulnerable. It's about knowing your limitations and working within them." A commotion outside drew their attention. Through the window, they could see a team of handlers rushing past with containment equipment. Sarah checked her datapad and smiled slightly. "They're bringing in a new specimen," she explained. "A sea wasp, another species of box jellyfish. Want to know something interesting? Its venom is so potent that it can kill within minutes, but it also contains compounds that might help treat several neurological diseases. That's Earth for you, danger and opportunity, always intertwined." Axon watched the handlers' careful movements, seeing them with new eyes. Where once he had seen weakness in their caution, now he recognized wisdom. Their precise protocols, their reinforced suits, their constant vigilance, all of it spoke of a deep understanding of their place in nature's hierarchy. "When I recover," he said slowly, testing each word, "I would like to learn. Not to prove anything, but to understand." "That's a good start," Sarah replied. "Though when might be optimistic. The venom caused some interesting changes in your neural pathways. You may need to relearn basic motor functions." Axon tried to feel anger at this news, but found only acceptance. "Then I will learn that too." Over the next few weeks, Axon's recovery became a lesson in itself. Each small victory, moving a finger, forming clear speech, eventually sitting up, taught him something about patience and perseverance. He watched as Vex and the other researchers made breakthrough after breakthrough, their enthusiasm for Earth's biodiversity growing daily. During his physical therapy sessions, now adapted for Zenithian physiology, he often found himself reflecting on the creatures in the facility. Each one had evolved its defenses over millions of years, developing exactly what it needed to survive. There was a perfection in that efficiency, he realized, a different kind of strength than the brute force his people had always prized. One evening, as he finally managed to stand unassisted, Sarah brought him news from the Zenithian Science Academy. They had reviewed Vex's preliminary findings and were, for the first time in their history, considering establishing a permanent research station on Earth. They want to understand how Earth's organisms might help us develop better neural interfaces, she explained. Apparently, your experience has opened up whole new areas of research potential. Axon smiled, an expression that still felt foreign on his metallic features. Then perhaps my pride served some purpose after all. He paused, watching a new specimen being carefully transported past the medical bay. Though I think I prefer learning through observation from now on. A wise choice, Sarah agreed, helping him back to his bed. You know, there's an old Earth saying, the more you know, the more you realize how much you don't know. Your planet, Axon replied, seems especially good at teaching that lesson. 6 months after the incident, the Global Xenobiology Research Center hosted an unprecedented gathering. Representatives from 27 spacefaring civilizations had assembled to hear a presentation from the last speaker anyone would have expected, Battlemaster Axon of the Zenithian Third Fleet. The once imposing warrior stood at the podium, his metallic skin still bearing the subtle discoloration where the blue-ringed octopus had struck. His movements, though largely recovered, retained a slight hesitation, a permanent reminder of his encounter with Earth's wildlife. Distinguished colleagues, Axon began, his voice carrying easily through the chamber. We have long measured species by their technological achievements, their military might, or their territorial expansion. Today, I stand before you to suggest we have been using the wrong metrics entirely. The holographic display behind him came to life, showing Earth's vast array of life forms, from microscopic organisms to its largest creatures. This planet, which many of us dismissed as a primitive backwater, has more to teach us about survival and adaptation than all our advanced civilizations combined. In the audience, Dr. Sarah Chen sat beside researcher Vex, whose work had become the foundation for a new field of biosynthetic research. The smaller Zenithian's skin rippled with pride as their former commander continued. Consider the blue-ringed octopus, Axon said, bringing up a detailed hologram of the creature. A being smaller than my hand, with no advanced technology, no complex social structure, no capability for interstellar travel. Yet it developed a neurotoxin so sophisticated that it bypassed every defense my supposedly superior physiology possessed. He gestured to his own still damaged neural pathways. My recovery has been partial, and I consider that limitation a gift. It reminds me daily of the lesson Earth taught me. True strength lies not in domination, but in adaptation, in efficiency, in understanding one's place in the greater web of existence. The chamber stirred with murmurs as Axon brought up new data, the revolutionary findings from the past 6 months of collaborative research. Thanks to researchers like Vex, we've begun to understand how Earth's organisms might help us improve everything from our neural interfaces to our environmental adaptation systems. But more importantly, we've started to understand a fundamental truth about evolution and survival. He paused, his faceted eyes scanning the audience. The humans never conquered their world's dangers. They learned to respect them, to study them, to understand them. Their caution isn't weakness. It's wisdom born from millions of years of coexistence with life forms that could kill them with a single touch. The display shifted to show the facility's safety protocols, its careful containment procedures, its precise handling methods. What we initially saw as excessive caution is actually the height of sophistication. The humans have developed systems that allow them to study and learn from creatures that could easily destroy them. That's not just science, it's art. In the audience, a Cranaxian representative raised their atmospheric manipulator. But surely with our advanced technology, we could develop better ways to contain and control these creatures. Exxon's metallic skin rippled with what might have been amusement. 6 months ago, I would have said the same thing. Now I understand. Control was never the point. The goal is coexistence, understanding, and mutual respect. He brought up one final display, a proposal for a new galactic scientific initiative. I stand before you not just as a Zenithian battlemaster, but as someone transformed by failure. My encounter with Earth's wildlife nearly killed me, but it also opened my eyes to a new kind of strength. I propose we establish Earth as the center for a new kind of research, one that combines our advanced technology with their deep understanding of biological adaptation and survival. Sarah watched as the chamber erupted in discussion, representatives from various species engaging in heated debate about Exxon's proposal. Beside her, Vex's skin glowed with excitement. "Do you think they'll accept?" the young researcher whispered. Sarah smiled, remembering countless other species who had come to Earth believing themselves superior, only to leave profoundly changed. They don't have much choice. Earth's wildlife has a way of teaching humility to even the proudest species. As the debate continued, Exxon made his way back to their section of the chamber, his movement still carrying that slight hesitation. "Dr. Chen," he said, settling carefully into his reinforced seat, "I believe I owe you an apology, and a thank you." "Oh." Sarah raised an eyebrow. "For what?" "The apology is for not heeding your warnings. The thank you," he gestured to the chamber full of representatives now eagerly discussing Earth's potential, "is for letting me fail in a way that taught me to succeed differently." Above them, the facility's containment systems hummed quietly, maintaining their vigilant watch over Earth's deadliest and most fascinating creatures. In their secure habitats, countless small wonders continued their ancient existence, indifferent to the profound effect they had on the galaxy's most advanced species. And in a specially reinforced container, a small blue-ringed octopus floated serenely in its artificial environment, unaware that its simple act of self-defense had helped reshape the galaxy's understanding of strength, pride, and the true meaning of survival.